What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we have some Detroit Lions news to discuss. The Lions have had some movement today with their roster, and we can expect a lot more movement as time goes on. But today we had some movement. The Detroit Lions lost another player to retirement. The second player this offseason that has retired before taking a snap with the Lions after signing here this offseason. Very, very strange. I don't know if this has happened before. I'm sure it has. It just doesn't seem like something that's happened recently, but it's happened so far this offseason. However, the Detroit Lions wasted no time. Maybe they were prepared for something like this to happen, and they went out and signed a player to kind of replace him. Not exactly, because they're different types of players, but they did go out and fill that roster spot out pretty darn quickly. So let's get it started.
Up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to the video. Glad you guys are here. And yeah, we got some Lions news, and that's kind of the time of the year we are at right now. We're heading into the end of July, which means training camp kicks off soon. We're going to have updates about players getting cut, potentially players getting signed, kind of like we do today, possibly trades. But then you get into preseason, and of course, there's just so much to talk about with preseason. By the time that's all over, we're into the regular season, and then it's go time. That's kind of the part of the year. And you know what? The offseason, great. June, July, really, I mean, before then, it's great, but it's also exciting to get back to consistent news, and that seems to be where we're at. Now, this news, I wouldn't call it good news today. It's actually kind of unfortunate when you have a player retire, especially when he's not that old. But it is good news for the player that we did pick up, because he gets another opportunity with Detroit. So what went down today? That's probably what you're asking, or you read the title and you're not asking that. You just want to know a little bit more. Well, what went down today is that the Detroit Lions lost defensive lineman Brian Price, who was only 27 years old, to retirement. He has been placed on, let me word this correctly, the reserved retirement list. He has been placed on that list. And basically that list means that this player retired before his contract expired. So he's still under contract, but he decided to retire, so he's placed on this list. And putting him on this list means that if for whatever reason he decides to return to the NFL, the Detroit Lions can retain his rights, and his contract would pick up right where it left off. So if he does change his mind, whatever it may be, and he wants to come back and play, the Detroit Lions could still have him on the roster if they want to keep him here, because they are retaining his rights. So I guess that's good news. But it is unfortunate that you have a 27-year-old retiring. Now, I don't know the exact reason here. I wasn't really able to figure that out to see that a young guy like that, 27, would retire. But hopefully everything is good on his end. Because Brian Price, even though he didn't have a lot of statistical production, it was kind of a statement to me on how the Lions wanted to move this defensive line going forward when they made that signing. Because remember, before they made that signing, shortly before, all right, they released nose tackle John Atkins. Now, of course, he was here from the past regime, but John Atkins was definitely much different. Atkins was more of a, lane clogger, run defender. Wasn't much of a pass rusher. Didn't really give you that kind of upside, but he had the size to play nose tackle in a 3-4 scheme. So that's what he had going for him when they signed Brian Price. Now, Brian Price, maybe he was slightly undersized for a typical nose tackle role in a 3-4 defense, because like a team like Cleveland, they were in a 4-3 defense. However, he could do it because he did have enough size to do it. Plus, he could play in the 3-tech, things like that. But the biggest difference between those two guys is that Brian Price was much more explosive, way quicker get off, and he was a guy that was just built for attacking downhill. Simple as that. He brought some pass rushing upside on early downs. It was kind of like, okay, this is kind of the direction the Lions seem to be going with this defensive line. And it seemed like that kind of happened again today with this signing that the Lions made. So I was excited to see what Brian Price could do in training camp, because he was pretty explosive. He had a nice get off, and we're talking about a guy that's 320. You don't really expect that. So that was a big difference between him and John Atkins, and to me it kind of symbolized like, oh snap, we're going forward with guys that can get downhill or uphill, however you want to say it. I guess it doesn't really matter. Now, the Detroit Lions do have John Penisini, and they have Lee McNeil, who they drafted this offseason, that can play that nose tackle role. Penisini being a little bit more of the run stuffer, not much of a pass rush upside type of guy, but Lee McNeil is another one of those guys that can stop the run, but also get after the quarterback a little bit more than I would say John Penisini could. But because they're both so young, now they're both on rookie deals, Penisini's only going into his second year, it seems like we kind of know what we have going forward at that nose tackle position. So today, the Lions, to fill out that roster spot, they get a guy that has played nose tackle in the past. He has some experience with it, but that goes back to college. They went out and they claimed off waivers Bruce Hector, the defensive tackle, most notably from the Philadelphia Eagles and USF back in college. Now, this is only a 26-year-old defensive tackle, so it seems like the Detroit Lions are looking for some of these guys that maybe didn't have the most production, but they feel like could potentially add depth if they made the team, see what they can do, give them a real shot, give them an opportunity through training camp. And I love that. I love the approach of, why leave the roster spot open? Yes, we have these guys, but let's just bring in more competition. Let's not let off the gas. Don't ever let off the gas. Keep pushing people behind them. And even though odds are it's going to be very tough for him, just like it was for Brian Price to make the team, to me, putting on that pressure is great. And that's what the Lions continue to do. But it also kind of tells you what type of player the Lions are looking for in that defensive line, which could be potentially symbolizing, especially this move, more of a one-gap approach next season. With two-gap abilities, but more of a one-gap approach, which, hey, I'm all in for that because Todd Wash did it with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that means basically instead of being a read and react defense, they're going to be getting downhill a lot more often, and that could be more pressures because usually statistical production for defensive linemen shoots up when that happens. It may go down a little bit for linebackers, but it goes up for defensive linemen when you go to a one-gap defense. But let's talk about this defensive lineman that the Lions signed in Bruce Hector. I want to do a quick little background on Bruce Hector because I think the background of Hector kind of tells you all you need to know about the type of player that Detroit Lions claim today off waivers. Usually when you have moves like this, just like when we signed Brian Price, you don't expect the guy to make the team. There's not a lot of expectations for him, but that's not something that's new to him because he surprised a lot of people multiple times in the past. And that's who the Lions signed today. Now, no, I'm not going to project him to make the roster most likely, but that's something that's already happened for him, and he's done it. So I want to do a quick little background. I don't have many notes from his middle school or high school days, but I do have more from his college days. And I just wanted to give you that background before we get into what I saw on the little film that we do have and potentially what his role would be with the Lions in his competition. So going back to middle school, high school, he was a basketball player that just gave football a try. He was a basketball guy. And again, this is a big dude, okay? He's 6'2", 299 right now. This is a big guy going back. And he said he did have issues maintaining his weight. He said he was bullied a little bit, but it was probably just kids. In the 8th grade, he would change schools. And at this new school, he said the coaching staff was great. They really just, they believed in him. They believed in him a ton, and that's why coaching is so important. They believed in him. They gave him an opportunity, and he wasn't a very high recruit coming out of high school, but he ended up landing with USF. He only was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school that had a really, really strong high school career. He didn't get a lot of looks from power team conferences. It was really just UCF, and that was it. But that was one of the 3 teams that I guess he wrote down of teams that he wanted to play for. One of those were Florida State. I don't remember the other one. Maybe it was UCF. I don't exactly know. But that was one of the teams that he wrote down. He landed with USF. I guess it was their coach that caught his eye. Now, I believe that coach that I'm referencing right now was not there when he got there, whether that was because he fired or he left. I think. That may not be exactly correct, but I think that's what happened. However, it still worked out because he had a fantastic college career. And now here he is with the Detroit Lions. So he attends UCF, and early there, it was all about muscle mass, getting him stronger, perfecting his craft. They wanted him to be ready to go. And maybe they didn't think the development was completely there, but there was a lot of high expectations. All right, one ranking for USF for the incoming freshman was 21 out of 25. All right, not a lot of expectations. Even an article wrote the year before he played, or I would say before that season started, an article wrote that playing time is going to be sparse, it's going to be hard to find because there's a lot of returning defensive linemen. But then you look at his statistical production and you're like, oh snap, it took him no time at all to absolutely break out. So it was about getting stronger, and he added 20 pounds during that time. But it was 2015 when we first saw him on the field, and you could see 3 years of production. The guy just came, absolutely out of nowhere. Look at those stats. He only had 14 solo tackles, 5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and only 9 games played. That's a fantastic season. I think it's important to mention that was part of a 4-2-5 defense that really, it brought out a really dominant defensive lineman at UCF, okay? And he did big things against big schools as well. Specifically, South Carolina had a huge game. And he's like, South Carolina, they kind of had their chest out a little bit, expecting this game to go differently. But remember, this was USF during this time span that he was there. They turned things around. USF was struggling, and they turned things around. They put arguably their best 3-year stretch together when he was on the field. It's important to mention because it is what Aaron Glenn ran last season. It's also very similar to a 2-4-5, which I kind of anticipate the Lions to run based on their personnel personnel, but it's a one-gapping defensive look in sub-packages. The only difference between a 2-4-5 and a 4-2-5 is, like we said, outside linebackers, they're in a 2-point stance. The defensive ends, they're obviously have their hands in the dirt, but 3-tech, things like that, it gives you a little bit of movability. Usually push your defensive lineman in a little bit, but that was the defense where he just kind of broke out. And this was a big guy playing defensive tackle, putting up those kind of numbers. His second season, the improvement, 10 games. You see the solo tackles go up. You see the sacks go up by 1. And you also see 8 tackles for loss. And then finally, it was his final season. He was a senior, 12 games played because, again, he redshirted early in his career. The guy goes, Bruce Hector, 13 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and 26 solo tackles. Isn't it crazy that he only had 26 solo tackles, yet half of those were for loss? Because it was that one gap defensive line. And like I said, I'm perfectly fine with that going forward. It seems like the type of players that the Lions are bringing in. But man, those are some numbers there. Let me put that in perspective, the kind of numbers that he put up, again, as a defensive tackle. Okay? The numbers that he put up. AAC has not been around for a long time, but it is the 5th highest. I don't know if it currently stands, but at the time, it was the 5th highest sacks all time for an AAC player. It was also the 2nd highest sacks all time for USF. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'll say that's all right. Heading into the draft, the expectations were that he probably wasn't going to get drafted. He could go near the end of the draft, but he probably wasn't going to get drafted. However, man, the dude showed up at his pro day. Oh my goodness. And I throw this relative athletic score, a 4.98 40 time, which would have been the 3rd highest 40 time for any defensive tackle in this draft class if he was at the combine. A 1.75 second 10-yard split, pretty darn solid. 33-inch vertical. The dude was 299, had a 33-inch vertical, and 26 bench press reps. So I guess that middle school teacher was right. Yeah, he could move. And we've heard it since then as well. Around draft time, we're like, wow, this guy moves his feet really well for his size. So that's kind of what you're getting. You're getting an athletic, really athletic player for a dude that's 299. And that's not easy to find. So put up these great relative athletic score, had a really strong college career, goes undrafted, gets picked up by the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles gave him a lot of guaranteed money, kind of like what we did with guys like Javon McKinley. They gave him the most. And for him, it worked. He ended up making the team. He slowly worked his way up the roster. His preseason was phenomenal in 2018. He had that strip sack against Pittsburgh and he moved up quick. He moved up the depth chart from being, the 3rd group of defensive linemen to the 2nd group of defensive linemen through preseason. Then we saw him in the regular season just a little bit. We didn't see him a ton, but specifically 2 games we saw him, and that was against Carolina, and it was also against the LA Rams. Interesting. The Detroit Lions have a couple guys who were with the Rams at the time. Maybe they had something to do with it. Maybe they remember him from that. Didn't play a ton, but on the season he had 83 defensive snaps. However, it is impressive for a UDFA to find the field in his first year. 2019 was a very strange year for Bruce Hector because he started off with the Philadelphia Eagles for the first couple of preseason games, and it was going to be tough because Philly had a lot of depth on the D-line. They liked their D-line, but they had a lot of pieces here, and it was going to be really tough for him to make the team. So they ultimately decided to trade him away to the Arizona Cardinals before the Week 4 preseason game, and in exchange, they brought in safety help, and I think his name is Rudy Ford. So they brought a safety in. Cliff Kingsbury wanted to see Bruce Hector. He was excited to get to see him for a week, and that's what they did. Week 4 of the preseason, we saw him specifically in that 4th quarter, and I mean, that's a lot of change, right, to just bring him in. It's like, okay, here we go, let's play. Now, it's a very vanilla scheme, but it was definitely a transition. However, it didn't last very long because after that Week 4 preseason game with Arizona released him. And Philadelphia's sitting there like, okay, let's just bring him right back. So they signed him right back to their practice squad. So I think Philly finessed a little bit here. The Philly finesse, okay? Philly had him. They traded him away to get a different player. And then Arizona released him anyway, so they just signed him back. So it's kind of a weird situation. So he ends up back with the Philadelphia Eagles. He spends his entire 2019 season with the Eagles that year as well. So it looks like, oh, he was just with Philly again, but it was kind of a weird transition. However, plays in just over 50 snaps that season. But then 2020, heading into that year, he is released by the Eagles. The Carolina Panthers pick him up. And look, they put him on the practice squad, but they protect him multiple weeks in a row. They actually activated him that year against the Chiefs and against the Buccaneers. Now, he didn't play in those games, but he was active in those games. There for the entire 2020 season until the Tennessee Titans then in 2021 this offseason would pick him up. They'd sign him. He really wasn't with the Titans long, just a couple of days before the draft, and then a few months later he would be released. So, it's not like it was that long ago that he was actually waived by the Tennessee Titans. However, when you do look back at the Titans this offseason, they didn't address the defensive line throughout the draft. By the way, I like their draft looking back at it, man. It was a pretty darn nice draft. But their free agency, They did go out and add Denico Autry. They also added Hamilton, so it made it even tougher to make the team. And now here he is with the Lions, and yeah, Autry got a 3-year, $21 million deal. So it gave an opportunity for him to land with us, and I'm excited. Asking where's the connection here? Maybe not a great one, but there is a connection. He didn't play much special teams back in the NFL with Philly, but he does have a connection with Dave Phipp. He played about 4% of the special team snap, and Dave Phipp was special teams coach for Philly. He is, of course, our new special teams coach. So maybe they know each other. Maybe that had something to do with this. But regardless, when I went back and watched this film, I mean, it was like, okay, I see what the Lions are doing here. You can look at it going back to college. You can see his athletic numbers. It's kind of clear what the Lions are doing here. They want defensive linemen that can get upfield. And when we signed Brian Price, it was like, oh, okay, we're going from a guy that really is more of a run defender to a guy that can get downhill. Levi, Aleem McNeil, one gap ability. And they've done that again here. It's not going to be easy to make the team for the 27-year-old, but he's surprised people in the past that I like, and then maybe the things that I don't love, okay? Now, there's two things that he does pretty consistently at a high level, and this is hand placement and leverage, and it's two very important things for him because he's not the strongest guy. His upper body is actually one of my biggest knocks. I think it's lacking a little bit. I was expecting a little bit more power from his upper body considering his size, and I think it's lacking a little bit. For him, his game is based on light on his feet, balance, leverage, hand placement. It's the little things that he has to do at high level because he can't stand there and maul guys back. He doesn't have that strength. Most offensive linemen that he's going to go across probably are a little bit stronger in the upper body than he is, and I think that's represented by the 26 bench press reps. It's not bad, but you know, there's, I mean, some dudes out there putting up 40, right? He's not that kind of player. For him, it's about the little things that he has to do at a high level, and two things that I like pretty consistently was hand placement and leverage. Hand placement, consistently getting his hands right on the chest of an offensive lineman, and it helps him a ton. You do see occasionally his hands get outside, he can be mauled out of the play, but pretty consistently he gets his hands in a really good spot. Actually, I would compare this a little bit to some snaps I've seen with Aleem McNeil, to Mac watching his NC State film, and also his leverage. I would compare this a little bit to Levi, kind of a mix here. At a lower level, sure, but one thing that I liked about Levi's film back at Washington is he did a great job of being able to stay explosive and transition that explosiveness into power. All right, Levi was able to stay low off the snap, keep a good bend, keep good leverage, and explode right into an offensive line. Maybe he wasn't stronger than the offensive lineman, but because he got, you know, again, lowest man wins, because he was able to do that consistently, he could move guys back. And that's what Bruce Hector can also do. You see it, and it's impressive because he's 300 pounds doing this.
You'll notice Fletcher's get off on this play is just disgusting, but he's going against the left tackle here. Look how he just puts his shoulder into the left tackle and just drives him back, stays low right off the snap, keeps good leverage, and he's just driving back, splits the guy in half.
You do see that balance, and you see that ability to stay low, not slip and fall, but stay low to the ground off the snap, transition any kind of that burst off the snap into power. Now, as the play goes on, I think that does waver a little bit, but off the snap, for sure, those are two things that he does at a pretty high level. I would also have to give him credit for his light feet, but good balance. I mean, this is for sure probably one of his biggest strengths is the balance that he's able to keep on the field. And you see it a ton when he's working from offensive lineman to the next, you know, when he's working across the line of scrimmage, specifically as a pass rusher, you see really good balance here because he's able to stay pretty square. What do I mean by that? Not necessarily read and react, but where he's not slipping and falling, you know, he's not falling sideways as a pass rusher. He keeps pretty good balance, and it allows him to move from one offensive lineman to the next. And I think that's going to be huge if you talk about stunt work from inside to the outside.
This play is all about Bruce's feet, all right, and balance, okay? He's playing 3-tech going against the left guard here. You can watch his hands. He gets inside, but right here, bam. Notice how he's able to put his left foot right in front of his right foot. He's able to keep very square to the line, and he's able to wrap himself around the offensive lineman to force the quarterback to leave. Doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but he forces the quarterback out of the pocket on his own.
You're going to try to utilize him in those certain scenarios. For him, his balance is huge.
This is one of those examples of kind of everything you're looking for in a downhill defensive lineman. Number 90 here, he's at the 3-tech position across from the left guard. First off, the center's going to pull out of this play, so he recognizes that quickly, jumps into the backfield trying to get downhill. But you just like everything about it. He stays balanced with the line of scrimmage here. Look how he moves sideways, stays square. Also notice the quick hands to react there and explode and disrupt this play in the backfield. Now, he's unable to bring the tackle or a ball carrier down, but he does disrupt the play.
Offensive linemen try to cut block right when they dive dive at his legs off the snap, and he's able to keep his balance, stay light on his toes, react to it, and then get back into the play.
Really a lot to like in this play. So he's at the 3-tech again, and this is going to be a stretch run play. So it's up to that left tackle to try to get in front. Now, because he's so explosive on the snap, you can see he beats him to the spot. Left tackle goes at his legs, but then he stays engaged with the play.
Got to give him credit for his hands. As I said, okay, now he keeps good hand placement consistently, but he's also very quick to react with his hands. All right, if an offensive lineman throws something at him, he can quickly react. You see him go to a swim move a lot, but you'll see little things in his game. You know, little nuances that he's picked up, ability to kind of push and pull.
This probably isn't the best angle to see what's going on. He's lined across from the left guard here, but you're going to see quick hands, gets his hands on the defender very quickly off the snap, stays low, but notice his left hand, right, pulls down, bam, right there. And then he's able to just kind of push him out of the way, and he gets to the backfield. That's a quick win for a defensive lineman. Doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but that leads to sacks.
Quick to react, and he said this is something that scouts have talked to him about because, you know, they can get their hands out there as an offensive lineman, but he's quick to punch those down, slap at him. He's got very quick reaction time, not only in his feet, staying nimble, reacting to things, adjusting in space, but also hand fighting, going to battle.
Good example against Arizona. This is 2019, so it's a little bit more recent here. He's going against for the right guard in this spot. He's wearing the number 62. You're just going to notice the hand battles. He kind of chops his feet, smacks as soon as those offensive linemen's hands come up, and then bam, shoulder right into the chest, and he's driving back. He does that a lot.
It's kind of those little things that he has to do at a high level. He doesn't miss many tackles either. Now, this is kind of two-sided for me because back in college, he didn't have a single missed tackle. He didn't have a single broken tackle. And that's probably the truth is that, you know, if he gets his hands around you, you're probably not going to break that tackle, which is awesome. However, an issue I did notice with his game is that he can run by people. When you're playing in a one-gappy defense, you're consistently getting upfield. You're exploding into the backfield. He doesn't always break down. He can sometimes just run past guys. You know, it's tough at the NFL, no doubt. You know, you got running backs that are super skilled in the backfield.
One of those whiffs. It's kind of something that happens with this defensive type of player, but you're going to see him again. He's going against the left guard here. No one picks him up, so they're going to block towards the second level, but he gets back in the backfield so quick off this snap that no one touches him, and he's into the backfield, but he runs by the running back, not unable to break down because he's fighting so fast to get to the backfield, can't break down.
Gets going forward, and then he just runs past the running back. So I would say breaking down is something he could add, but if he does get his hands usually on a ball carrier, he's probably bringing him to the ground. And that's, I mean, it's impressive to think that he had 0 missed tackles and 0 broken tackles allowed back in college. I mean, that's pretty wild. I did not think that was a real stat when I first saw it. That's pretty wild. Also, you have to bring up that closing speed because it is there. He does have some closing speed for a defensive tackle to run down quarterbacks. Now, he ain't going to run down Lamar, but he does have more closing speed than you would expect.
The nature of a defensive front like this is just so different, okay? Again, he's kind of just outside the center here, kind of inside the guard, maybe at a 2-tech here, but you're just going to see it's going to set up a screen, doesn't even, you know, read to react to it. He's just attacking the backfield, but he gets there so quickly that the quarterback just has to ground this pass. It's just the nature of this position.
Notice it seemed like he could get gassed, and you didn't see consistency from down to down. This is probably one of my bigger knocks as well because he doesn't play a ton, so this is kind of tough to gauge. But not every down did you see the same explosiveness from one snap to the other. And that's expected, right? It's a physical sport. You're going to get tired. But some snaps you'd see him, and it was like, whoa, dude, he's just shooting out of a cannon. And then other snaps you'd see him kind of be the last guy off the line. And I think we've seen this with Levi as well. Go back and watch his film. When he gets off, oh, he's faster than anybody. But you don't see it every snap. So I think you also know something here with Bruce Hector as well. I think it's just the nature of the role that he plays and the type of defensive lineman. And that's why you have to have good depth. That's why Eagles love their defense line depth because you got to keep those guys fresh because they can get worn out attacking downhill consistently. They're not sitting there holding lanes. They're consistently working to get downhill, and that can wear you out a little bit. And plus, it's very important that you're on top of the snap. Probably one of my most underrated favorite parts of his game has to be his readjustability. Now, I know, like, what the heck does that mean? It's his ability to really readjust and get good leverage so he can get high. So one issue that I did notice is that staying low off the snap, transitioning that explosiveness into power is something that he does well. However, as the play goes on, working through pass rush moves, he doesn't display a lot of bend. He gets taller as the play goes on, and then he gets really high. To show a lot of bend, which can concern you a little bit about trying to work around the offensive line. However, what he can do is readjust, reposition himself, keep good balance, and then reposition himself low into an offensive lineman to get right back in their chest. And he can do this when he starts one offensive lineman to the next. Working through the play, he may stand up, but then he'll be able to dip down, get low, and you can just see it, man. Just a great footwork to get low and then just punch him right back in the chest. And that's how he moves guys back. He has to keep that good leverage because he can't just bull rush guys into the pocket. For him, it's all about leverage, and he has displayed occasionally the ability to readjust, get himself low throughout the play, which is tough to do. It's tough to ask the dude at that size to get back down.
Now, this isn't really a passing example, but it is run defense. He's at the 1 tech here, just outside the center. One thing you also would do is push Fletcher Cox to the 3 tech, which is usually the pass rushing role, but I thought I'd just point that out. But I like this. See how his leg goes up, bam, right here. He's taking on 2 linemen. But look how he repositions himself, gets good balance, gets right back inside, good leverage here. And he's able to push himself back into this play. I thought that was just really impressive. Most guys would probably get ran over there. But he's able to get his foot back on the round, good positioning, good hand placement.
To get back low again and hit again, and that's something that he can do. So that stuff's impressive.
All right, I think this is a great example. Across from the left guard here. Left guard does a great job keeping square, pushing him off to the center. But look how he doesn't get high. See how he stands up? Re-squares his body towards the line, repositions low, and then pushes him back into the pocket. That's beautiful.
What I don't love is the size, the frame, just strength in the upper body for a 2-gapping defense. I don't love it. And maybe you'll have more success if you try to push him. Gosh, I mean, I don't know. I would think if you pushed him further to like a 5 tech, but to me, when you watched him back play, it was between the 1 tech and the 3 tech is where he really got a lot of his snaps. So basically, offset of the center, one side or the other, to the 3 tech, which would be lining across from a guard. Really, that's the area where you saw him play the most. Outside of that, I really didn't see him venture far into like a 5 tech, which would be across from a tackle. So I don't know if that's in his game. If you want a 2-gap, that's probably your best bet to do it, is push him outside. He just doesn't seem like the guy that's built for that. And that's fine if that's not what the Lions are looking for. That's absolutely fine. Even then, when he gets double teamed, there's not much effectiveness there. He can really be thrown off the play. And when he does get high at all, if he doesn't stay low and his hands get out to his side, then all of a sudden he can get mauled out and he can be pushed off sideways. He can be completely taken out of the play. Now, he does have that athleticism to get back into it, but he can be bowled out of a play. So for him, it is about 1 gap, getting downhill, trying to be a disruptor in the backfield. He's not really built to sit. He doesn't show much bend, and I don't expect to see a lot of this from a 300-pound defensive tackle, but he doesn't seem to show that much where he can work past an offensive lineman, whether it's a swim move, whatever the move may be, and then bend and get low and work his way around and really get that corner on an offensive lineman. He doesn't really show that, and that's probably a little bit of the nature of the position, but that does concern you a tad. Wonder how much versatility he has to bump outside to a defensive end type of role. Spreading him out a little bit deeper across the offensive line, you wonder how much bend that he's going to have there. Maybe he has more than I've seen on the film. Again, it's a pretty small sample size that I've seen, but I just didn't see tons of bend. Like I said, as the play goes on, he gets a little bit taller, but he's able to reposition himself, and that's where he finds success because he does get tall as the play goes on. He has some closing speed. He just hasn't shown much bend, to dip and really get low and work his way around an offensive lineman after that first initial explosiveness, staying low and hitting the first strike. He then gets higher as the play goes on. Here's what I see him. I see him as kind of like a Levi. Okay, passing downs, obvious passing downs, we've talked about it. Levi could push inside, obvious passing downs. Watch him back at Washington. He played some nose. It didn't work unless it was passing downs. Early downs, you can't ask Levi to play nose tackle. He just ain't big enough. He ain't built like that. But if you know they're passing the football, you can put him at nose tackle because then it's just about getting a field. Kind of the same thing here, right? You could do this on obvious passing downs. You could throw him in at nose tackle.
Now, Philly would occasionally use him in the 1 technique. A lot of times they did this on obvious passing downs, but here you can see against the goal line. But they're doing it with both sides of the center. He's on the left side here, just inside the guard, outside the center. And you notice good leverage. He stays low. He pushes his offensive lineman into the ground here. So he can do things like this, but you're not putting him at 0 tech, playing in a 2-gap defense. He's not built for that.
I mentioned he has some up and down reps. Kind of like Levi, from snap to snap, you don't really know if you're getting the explosive get off or if you're going to get sometimes, the last guy off the line of scrimmage. He looks a little bit sluggish. And when he looks sluggish off the snap, it's a very big problem because then he's not really doing much at all. When he's not explosive off the snap, it takes away probably his biggest strength. Bruce, you need to see that rotation. You got to see this guy, get opportunities to sub in and out when we see him in the preseason, if he's here throughout the preseason, to get to see him. You don't want to see him every play. You need a rotation with him. And the Lions have the guys to do it, but you got to keep this guy fresh. And that's kind of the case with a lot of these defensive linemen, but that's why 1-gapping defenses, they love their depth. 2-gaps a little bit different, right? Because they're not consistently getting downhill. It's just more focused on read, react, fill the lanes, clog the lanes. One gap, it's getting downhill, and it's all about that quickness, explosiveness, athleticism. Because of his ability alone, there's pass rushing upside here because he's a very smooth athlete. You see it on his spin here, and there's a lot to it, especially from the interior as a smooth athlete in a one-gapping defense. The question is, how long do the Lions keep him around? Does he get an opportunity to work with Todd Wash and to hopefully develop some of those pass rushing moves to get downhill? Because there's things that you can't teach, and there's a lot of potential here. It's not all there right now, not at all. But he's young enough right now, and there's still enough there where you can build off of it. You just have to ask yourself, how long is he going to be here? I mean, there's definitely competition here, and it's not going to be easy. But like I said, at USF, he surprised a lot of people, and he became a very talented player. So for the Detroit Lions, I would say he's had a little bit more consistency than what it looks like when you look at it, seeing like, oh, he's been cut all the time. Really not. I mean, he's found some consistency a little bit in the NFL, considering that he's an undrafted free agent. Todd Wash, this is the kind of player that you have to get for Todd Wash, I think, when you're talking about one gap, because this is what he had in Jacksonville. So I think it makes sense. The competition's clear, though. It's Jayshon Cornell, who's suspended. It's Nick Williams, who had a pay cut. It's Deshaun Hand, who's had injuries, but Todd Wash said could be special, right? It's maybe not even as much Michael Brockers. It's Levi. It's those 4 players, Kevin Strong, those 5 players in particular that I think the competition you're going to see the most with is those 5 guys. Potential here because, like I said, Nick Williams did take a pay cut. I don't think Nick Williams gets cut, but he did take a pay cut. Deshaun Hand has had injuries in the past that he's had to deal with. Jayshon Cornell, we didn't see him last season. He wasn't brought in by this regime, and we know that he's already suspended this season, which stinks because I want to see Jayshon. I really like Jayshon's Ohio State film. Potential to move up here and surprise some people. Is it going to be easy? No. All right? It ain't going to be easy. But this is one of those spots where if you're going to surprise some people, it could come here. A steep hill to climb, do that. I'm not going to predict them to make the team or anything like that, but there is potential here. So if there was a spot that you could surprise people, I think this is actually the position that you could do it at season. I hope we give them a chance through preseason. That'd be great. The Lions are leaving that one roster spot open, and I like that. I actually do. Some people have talked about Golden Tate. We'll probably do a video on the Tate situation, whether or not the Lions should consider it. I think we've talked about in the past with Brad. We may do a video on it. But I do like the fact they're leaving one spot open, because if someone comes available from another team that gets cut and you're like, hey, I want that guy, then you have the potential to go sign him without having to make a decision to cut somebody just to go sign a player or try to claim him, because, you don't want to cut somebody out of urgency because there's someone else that you want to bring in. You want to be 100% sure when you cut somebody, because that's a big deal to cut a player. So for the Lions to leave that spot open, I think is a very smart decision to leave that spot open. If someone comes available, trade, signing, whatever it may be that you want to go grab, you have that roster spot available, instead of saying, oh gosh, we got to cut somebody because I want to go get him, and then you're urgently cutting somebody, and that's never a good thing. So I do like the fact that we're leaving this roster spot open, and plus there is one special thing about our guy here, okay, about Bruce Hector, is that think about this. You can buy Bruce Hector game-worn pants. I'm not kidding. Game-worn pants from Bruce Hector back with Philadelphia for $89 on Philadelphia's website. What? Seriously, $89. You can get some game-worn pants from Bruce Hector. I haven't seen that with many guys. $89, that's a steal. You want some game-worn pants? They're probably dirty, but dang, that's cool. I'm just saying, all right. I see you, Bruce. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Well, thank you for watching. And I'm out. Bruce. My handwriting's terrible. Bruce. Okay.